Alright guys, I'm trying to be methodical about this, how I'm going to do this, because I'm trying not to do work that I'm going to end up biting myself in the butt over. Now you can see I've got most of this stripped down in here, got all this surface rust and stuff gone, and that's going to give that an excellent tooth for epoxy. But again, I don't want to do a bunch of extra work. I'm getting a phone call or something. Anyway, so yeah, I took the brackets off, everything, because man, everything was bare underneath. Literally everything. There was nothing. I was just like, you got to be kidding me. So yeah, tank straps had to come off, all of that. And this, of course, this piece here, and I don't want to touch it because it's bare steel, and I'm fixing to epoxy it probably tomorrow. I blasted the stuff I could get in the blaster. The stuff I couldn't, that was too big, like this stuff here, you see I just went ahead and did that, blasted this. This stuff still needs to be cleaned. So I'm going to clean it with isopropyl alcohol, dry it real good with that compressed air, and then I'm going to hang it, and we're going to get the epoxy in probably tomorrow, which is no, you know, you guys see me epoxy before, no big deal. What else? I don't think I'm going to do anything special to the shop, clean, just move some of this stuff. I probably won't even move these hoods and stuff or the doors, because I don't care about the overspray on this stuff. It just doesn't matter. But there's a lot of dirt and stuff, so I got to get some of that out of there. Not that that's got to be like perfect, because it's inside. I'm going to put like 3 coats of epoxy on all that stuff, because that's underneath my car. And you can see I didn't strip all of it, and there's a reason, because when this is all done, when I get everything pretty much welded back together and everything, then eventually I'll end up either blasting the whole outside or manually stripping it like I did the rest of this. But until then, it'll be actually be on the car, welded on the frame, rails, and all that kind of stuff, all one piece, and then I'll either rotisserie the car or something and paint it that way, because I don't want to get it while it's in this phase. It's going to get a lot of this scratches and stuff, and I don't want to be redoing epoxy over and over. This stuff is sandwiched in between something, so it'll be protected. So that's really basically what I'm going for with that. So yeah, so that's that. Didn't really have a whole lot to say in this video. Just thought I'd kind of take you along and show you what I've done here, and again, make you guys aware that this is what's going on. And I had a lot of comments like, oh, you should just do this and just shoot some stuff up in there. And okay, I get that. I mean, you know, if you, and I've done it. I've done some of that. I've done it up inside there, and in certain places where, you know, I just don't want to take all that apart. These little baby spot welds that they put this together with, these little tiny, you know, pinch welds, they're not that hard to take off at all. I mean, they're just zit, zit, and you're done. I mean, it's, so, we'll see how this works out as far as welding it back together and all that kind of stuff, because this is 20 gauge steel. So it's pretty thin, but and I'm welding 20 gauge, so some of this is like 16 or 14 gauge steel, some of these braces, so we'll see how well this paper holds up. But what else? Anything else? Nothing else that's interesting? Nobody cares? I bought a bunch of the medallion weld through. This is what I'm going to be using. This etch weld primer. It does not have acid in it. I found out from Medallion. They said it does not have acid in it, so I don't have to worry about it acting stupid with, you know, my epoxy primer, which ultimately I'm going to epoxy everything. Well, everything's bare. And then I'm going to come back and clean little areas off, or I may even put a little piece of tape over some of these little divots, just so I don't have to sit and try to dig that stuff out of these little tiny divots like that, if that'll focus in. I'll probably just stick a little piece of tape, you know, just it won't take that long, I don't think, and there's not a whole lot to do there. So, and then just clean it off with the 80 on a roll lock, and should be good to start welding. And then what I'll do is I'll have just little circle spots that I ground off, and I'll shoot that weld through right over top the epoxy, because it's not going, like I said, it's not going to mess with it. But I'll make the circle big enough, about an inch is what I figured out when I'm welding. That's the heat ring, so I'll go about an inch in diameter. Well, let's see, I've got a bunch of plug welds that I did the other day, just messing around with this 20 gauge crap, and you can see here the heat ring, and it may not even be an inch. That one was not very good. I didn't have machine set just right. Actually, this one was the last one I did, and I actually heated the machine up a little bit better. And if you can see, it's almost flush, and it came through pretty nicely. So that's where I've got the machine set. These all did fine. You can see there's maybe just little tiny nipples coming through, but you can feel them up here. They're pretty tall. I don't want to grind it, as you know, I'd rather not grind if I don't have to, a whole bunch, you know. So that's basically, I might go a little faster just because I almost have a little indentation. Yeah, it's fairly, I mean, if I run a grinder across that, it'd probably smooth off pretty nicely. But anyway, yeah, decent penetration on that. I'm set about where I need to be. I use the weld through. I put two pretty good fat coats of that on there. Here's something that I learned. I actually learned this from Kevin. A lot of guys don't like welding through this weld through primer because they said it doesn't, you know, it's hard. They want to scratch it off and do all that. What I do, this is 20 gauge steel. I've got my machine set to 18 gauge steel. So it actually gets hotter and it burns through that coating, and it actually, you know, does what it's supposed to do. You can weld right through it. It's no problem. If you just go on 20 gauge settings or whatever, it tends not to want to, especially if you put it on thick, because I put it on pretty thick. You know, it says put however many, you know, like one thin coat or whatever. I want protection. I want the zinc in there, and that's what's in there. So I put it on pretty thick, and then I just turn my welder up. Man, it does it. It just, when I start welding, you'll hear it. It sounds like bacon. It does pop and spatter and spit and act stupid. And you can see all the welds there are, you know, fairly decent. They're not all, you know, full of holes and pits and all messed up. So, but yeah, that's about it for now. I'll try to get here tomorrow and get some of that done, but I'm also due back on the house again, doing the bathroom restoration, trying to get that done. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. But anyway, again, just be aware, man. I mean, and maybe you're not picky like me, like, you know, all of this stuff, like I showed you before, all this stuff's going to have to come off because all that's bare metal under there, which this is inside the car, but still, man, you know, I don't know. It just depends on what you're after, I guess. I plan on driving this car, you know, like really driving it, like all the time, and it's going to get wet, and it's going to get rained on, and it's going to get rock chips, and it's all that, you know. I plan on putting a full cage in this car, you know, maybe trying to take it out and race it. Not on a quarter mile, but actually, I think I already talked about this, but we got a track not too far from my house. It's pretty kick-ass, really. It's a professional track. But, I don't know. Oh, one thing I will tell you I screwed up. I'll share my screw-ups with you. Went ahead and popped all these holes. That was a mistake because it goes underneath this lip right here. So it fits under here. Well, now I have to weld upside down because I didn't, so that was stupid. Or I have to flip it up on its side or something. I can figure something out, but I can weld upside down. It's not that big a deal, but it's just not as, wouldn't be near as easy as just running, you know, running them right down through here like that and being done with it. But anyway, and I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this. I want to sandblast these before I coat them, to make sure I get any on any of these little pits and little areas and stuff, make sure that's all cleaned up. And then I will weld through prime. I don't know if I'll weld through prime all of it or just like the flanges, because I'm only welding to the flanges. Probably might do the same thing, just epoxy down the center, and I'll probably do the same thing actually that I'm doing to that, because this metal is not pitted up, it's not rusted like some of the old metal. That's the problem I found with epoxy and then trying to get it off. If you've got some of that metal that's got a little bit of pitting in it, this is all brand new sheet steel. So when you have a little bit of that pitting, that epoxy gets down in those little pits, and that's where you get problems. You start welding on that epoxy, and it just doesn't. It won't. It'll contaminate the crap out of the weld. At one point, I thought you could weld around epoxy or melt it away or whatever. That's a mistake. Your weld will get stupid. It'll actually start crawling up in the air and leaving a big hole, and it's crazy what it does, how it reacts to that. The more I've welded on some of this stuff and got around that epoxy, and then when you grind it down, you got this big crater in the middle of your weld because it just, it contaminated it. So, and I know I have people going, no, it doesn't. I've done it all the time. And okay, good for you. But I'm just telling you my experience on it. So, all right. Have a good evening.